CIS7. In this video, I'm going to go over your course project criteria and the components for the course project that is due the week before the final exam. So you will find this module in Canvas after your regular weekly module. It is listed as course project. The first page basically goes over the objective and the task of the project. So you can move forward to the next page where it lists the project criteria. So in this project, you're required to turn in 3 parts. In part 1, you will post a discussion where you would select a course project and you would include that in your reply. Along with, if you prefer to work in a team, you would need to answer the questions that would address team-related criteria. And in addition to the discussion post, there is a document that's linked on the discussion page where you would need to include your team information, your name, and your project case. Part 1 is worth 20 points. In part 2, you will be submitting the CPP file, which is your C++ file that entails the program addressing the course project criteria, along with the documentation explaining what your project would be. So that will be a summary and a pseudocode or a flowchart. This is worth 200 points. In part 3, you will be completing a self and team evaluation. If you are not working in a team, you will need to complete the survey for self-evaluation where you will grade yourself and note the proper answer for what kind of challenges you come across and what you have learned from the project. This is worth 80 points along with your GitHub portfolio or your repo. And in this project, you will find the course project cases listed on this page, which is under the project criteria. You can download this document or you can view it within the page. So in this course project, you're required to complete 1 case of the given cases. You will need to submit the program in C++ and the appropriate documentation and evaluation, as noted in part 1, 2, and 3. So in the first case, this is a travel salesman case. This is for Inland Empire Solar Sales Travel. In the first case, you are to use map to predict the shortest path for the salesman from Paris to Riverside to Moreno Valley and Hemet. Noted that the distance are shown on the actual diagram, so you will need to implement that into your program. And here you will find that there are 4 things that you need to address for the case. Number 1, assuming that the marketing specialist begins the trip from Riverside and return home daily. Determine the variation of the trip with the noted cities and what he must be taken to be able to sell the solar products. Number 2, determine the shortest path and the low-cost trips for the marketing specialist. And with this, you need to implement this for number 3, which is a C++ program that provides the representation of the trips, low cost, shortest path, and including the matrices of the adjacencies. And with this, I will be expecting documentation for your provided solution with your programming approaches. For case number 2, this is for UCR Medical Center volunteers. This is based on Doctors Without Borders program for 100 graduates. The physicians, you can decide on what expertise they would have for the specialization in the different areas. So if you prefer that certain physician would have specialized area, that will be your choice. But for the language fluency and for the countries, you can also come up with those, but make sure that the languages will be matching the 20 countries. So for example, if I pick Spanish, that would be matching with Mexico Latin America countries, and other part of the world like Spain. So you can select one language for multiple countries. So this is a program that will allow the 100 graduates to match their selected destinations based on their specialization, their language of fluency, and the preference of the country. And in this program, you will be expected to show that the match selection is based on the user input. It needs to have at least 5 languages that's implemented for 20 countries and at least 5 medical specialization that's implemented in the matches. In the program, you need to also show the probability of the participants based on the match for the language and the destination preferences. I will be expecting documentation for your programming approaches and your solution for this case. For case 3, this is on Vignette cipher decryption. And in our future exercise for the class assignment in our lab, we will be addressing Vignette ciphering. But in this case, you will be writing a program to decrypt and encrypt the user input. So Vignette mechanism is explained here. So you can take a look at how the system would encrypt and decrypt using Vignette. Also, the formula for encryption is included, where it would use mod 26, and K stands for key, and P stands for the user input for phrase. And for the decryption, we simply would apply a similar equation where you would implement the key plus 26, and we would apply the mod after the user has input. So in this program, you will be expecting to write a C++ program for the system to encrypt and decrypt the message from the user. You need to test the program and provide the appropriate documentation for your programming approach. Case number 4 is casino blackjack. I included the casino rules for the blackjack. If you're not familiar with that, you can go through and read the information for the requirement for the soft hand, doubling down, splitting pairs, and other areas for the probability of the casino blackjack. In this case, I will be expecting you to provide a C++ program that represents this casino blackjack game for a single deck 52 cards. Each player would have the advantage probability for each hand, so the probability needs to be shown for each of the dealt hand for the user. And it needs to also show the winning probability against the dealer hand in the C++ program. And for this case, I will also be expecting the documentation that you include for your solutions, your programming approach, including your pseudocode or your flowchart. So as you proceed through, in the course project part 1, you will see the discussion thread. Here, you need to answer the questions. What project case did you select? Are you looking to work in a team, and what makes you a good teammate? What will you contributing in your team? What is your choice of team communication? After you answer the question in the post, you will need to include the information for your project and your team members in the embedded document, which is number 5. And you can find that document, which is linked to my Google Doc below. So fill out that document to include your team name, your team members, and selected case. If you're working alone, you would need to also provide your team information, yourself as a team member, and selected case. And this is worth 20 points of your project, which is the discussion post and the team information in the Google Doc. In the course project part 2, after you have selected the team or your case, if you're working by yourself, refer to your course project criteria, and you will be submitting the CPP file and your documentation in course project part 2. This is worth 200 points, as I will be grading based on what you have completed with the C++ program. That's 100 points maximum. Your explanation and your approaches in your documentation, that's 60 points. And the ability to work in a team or plan out your project by yourself, that will be worth 40 points. For GitHub, which is part of project part 3, GitHub details is on this page. So if you're not familiar with GitHub, you can click the provided links to set up your repository or your repo. And if you're working in team, you can click on the links to learn how to set up commits, branches, pull requests, and be able to set up a README. Especially for GitHub, I will be looking for your readme.md file. So in course project part 3, there will be 2 pieces that you will need to submit. Number 1, you will need to complete your self or team evaluation, which is provided here. Second, you will need to provide a link to your GitHub. You can type the link into the comment, put it in an entry text box, or click on the URL tab and include your link for your GitHub, along with attaching the completion page for your team evaluation after you submit the survey. So for your GitHub, please include your CPP file and your readme.md file. And if you don't know how to do that, refer to GitHub how-to page. It shows you how you can create the GitHub repository, the readme.md, and I also embed videos for you to go through if you're not familiar with GitHub. And together, part 3 is going to be worth 80 points, 40 points for the self and team evaluation, 40 points for your GitHub repository that contains a README file and your CPP and your documentation. And you can look at the rubric for each of your course component for your project here. And so if you're not sure, you can take a look at that. I also provide some project examples, so you can look at the link, but please work on your project ahead of time. Make sure that you complete your course project before it's due. And if you have any questions, please get in touch with me during office hours or send a message. If you need help or have questions regarding documentation, programming, or different parts of your course project, please let me know. Thank you very much. I'm looking forward to seeing your project.